Throughout Chrono Cross, the main character Surge can recruit 44 other party members, and each of those characters has a unique color: blue, red, green, yellow, black, and white. The game encourages you to use characters of varying colors to shore up your party's weaknesses. But what if you just didn't? What if you only used red innate characters? Well, red innate characters can still use elements of every color, so that doesn't seem like too much of a challenge. But what if those red innate characters were limited to only using red-colored spells? Well, my cat thinks it would be pretty easy, but what do you think? In this video, I'm going to attempt to beat all of Chrono Cross using only red characters and elements. Here are the basic rules that I set up for this challenge. Whenever available, only red innate characters can be used in battle. This is literally the challenge. All other characters may only defend. If no red characters are available, any other characters can be used. However, they must only use their base equipment, and they can only use their weak attacks and red elements. The reason I use this specific rule is that by weakening my non-red characters, this shows that I could beat the game if just one red character were available. When she joins, Sprigg can be transformed into a red character if none are available. More on her later. And of course, I'm going to try to use only red elements for the entire game. I'll record my non-red element use as I go so that you can see how far I can take this challenge. If you want a more detailed explanation of these rules, take a look at the Discridly-Do. I've put them all there. And it'll also have some super fun links to my other Chrono Cross challenges. We start the game by naming our protagonist, and since he's bland and nondescript and amorphously oozes between two parallel universes, I name him Oatmeal. My chat enthusiastically encouraged me to theme this run around breakfast cereals. And if you want a chance to help me name the characters in future runs, do me a favor and cinnamon toast crunch that subscribe button. It really helps my channel. Most people who watch aren't subscribed, and best of all, it's free. Oatmeal now dribbles into the Fort Dragonia dream sequence. We skip every battle we can, and he drains the strawberry milk out of Kid. And isn't that the best part of fruity cereals? We wake up from our cereal dream and loot a Hecarim bone from our neighbor's house. Giving that to Poshel allows us to recruit her, and we name her Cookie Crisp. And then we head to the element shop. We have immediate access to tablets, a red consumable healing element. Barring text, these will be the only healing element we get access to for the entire game. They heal 30 damage in battle, and at least at the beginning of the game, this is pretty huge. Because they don't only heal. Using these elements changes the field effect, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I also buy some fireballs, and then we're off to wipe out the entirety of the Komodo dragon population. I'm not sure if they'd make a good cereal, but I do know that they make good jewelry, and our lazy girlfriend asked us to. And she's a hot girl, so she gets what she wants. Anyway, it's kind of a slaughter, but after we kill 3, the mama dragon is understandably a little upset with us and tries to kill us. Fortunately, she's blue innate, which is the opposite of red, which is the only element type we can use. Therefore, because we have a bowl full of red elements to use, we can immediately weaken her. Casting red elements changes the field effect to red, which makes her do less damage with her attacks and elements and strengthens any spells my characters use. And that means very quickly we take her down. But she's kind of big, so I decide to just let the wildlife in this area consume her carcass instead of taking her back myself. So we head to the beach to deliver our bounty, but unfortunately the bowl that is this universe has been overfilled and we spill over into another universe. And unfortunately in this universe, only dry cereal is allowed. So we decide to visit the place where the last bit of porridge was poured out of its bowl and into the ground, ruined forever. But some wet cereal-hating nerds get wind that the forbidden oatmeal has been summoned into this world. So they kick our Cookie Crisp to the curb and try to dry us out. And fortunately, we are rescued by Grill. And Grill is our first red innate character, meaning we can now actually fight the normal way. I mean, technically not normally, since now Oatmeal can only defend, but Girl does have a ton of red elements allocated, including the overpowered for this portion of the game Magma Bomb, which attacks all enemies. She also has plenty of tablets for healing. After my not-so-targeted Explosive Strike, I go after Pepor first, since his physical attacks are extremely powerful. In addition, his red text will be strengthened by the field effect, and he goes down. Karsh is my next target, and he too gets knifed to death. And finally, Salt. Salt really can't do much to me, and even misses a few attacks, so it's not long before the final member of the Spice Griddles goes down, yielding star number 2. Grill gets some extra strength, and she finally takes the time to introduce herself. And we name her Trix, because it's just for kids, silly rabbit, and she permanently joins our party. Before we leave Arnie Village, we recruit Mojo, whom we name Shredded Wit. Unfortunately, the character count was too small to write out the names, so we suffer. And then we get out of town and head to Fossil Valley. There, I grab an egg, which I'm sure we'll make an omelet from later, and to make it delicious, we shake things up again with the spice griddles. I do find it funny, though, that this dodo is just running around and squawking while we talk to them. Calm down, girl, it was not your egg. You stole that from a dragon. So, the spice griddles. Trix is now equipped with a bunch of great red elements. Her magma bomb is quite overpowered at this point in the game, and it deals area of effect damage to both of them. And because their combined crosscut attack as well as the Pepor box attack are red, Trix can take them pretty easily. And the red techs actually result in her attacks being made stronger due to the field effect. And they actually don't even target her before she can take out Pepor. With only Salt left, who can use the blue somersault attack, we're good, because Trix's red elements weaken this tech, and she's able to take out Salt soon after. So she snatches star number 3 and gets some extra HP and magic. So we head to Termina. There we grab the Profiteer's Purse, which we dismantle for some iron, and recruit Guile, whom we name Magic Spoon. So we head back to the element shop, sell all of our non-red elements, head to this dude here, trade for some leather, and hit up the blacksmith. We get Trix an iron dagger and an iron mail, and then we head to the bluffs. Here our job is to climb up the cliffs to Viper Manor while this dude throws giant Rice Krispies treats at us, but I dodge them all for the most part, and I fight a couple of Acacia Dragoons. This fight isn't anything special, and I easily get star number 4 from it. But after that, we have to fight the Moamans, or Moamen, if you will. There are 3 Moamen in this battle, a blue and red sidekick and a black one. To start this battle, the blue and red Moamen cast supportive spells on the black one, Nimble and Strengthen respectively. But after that, they go in with their own individual attacks, Flame Sword and Ice Sword. Both of those hit Trix, however they don't do too much, and she's able to take down blue soon after with some physical attacks. After healing, I have her attack the red Moaman and heal, and while it takes a bit longer, a combination of physical attacks and red elements take him out. But now things get rough, because the black Moaman now just continually attacks with Gravitone because his friends are dead. After 2 of them, Trix is down to 3 HP, and her 30 HP of healing from a tablet isn't enough to save her from a 3rd Gravitone, and I die. So I climb all the way back up, fight off the Acacia Dragoons, and fight Sunny the Cuckoo Bird again. I once again go after blue first. He and red use their single sword techs on Magic Spoon, and then they use a triple tech on Oatmeal. Fortunately, Trix is then able to finish off the blue bird right away. After that, I change my strategy a bit, and I go after the black Cuckoo since he only uses Gravitone once his friends are dead. It takes a while, but he does pretty minimal damage to Trix while she pursues him, and eventually he's permanently plucked. And that only leaves the red Angry Bird. And while Trix does minimal damage due to his innate element matching hers, he's weak enough that it only takes a few more rounds to defeat him. We next head into Viper Manor, where we see a gorgeous view of a giant Kix Puff looming above us, with a dragon ready to chomp it down. But since we can't fly and have other cereals to snack on, we'll delay that snack for later. So we feed some cornflakes to the Imperial Dragon, steal a necklace, and are assaulted by some GMOs. These bulbs are green innate, so Trix is neutral against them. I forgot to heal my other characters, but these guys can't be that strong, can they? I start by stealing from them, which is one of Trix's specialties and will be really helpful later. But not here, because the bulb I steal from yields only a seed. I could have just gone to Mahoney's for that. Then I let them have it. Because there are 2 of them, Magma Bomb is my initial play, and it does a ton of damage. But soon after, they use a Bushwhacker and a Bush Basher on Trix, and her sweet, sweet cereal milk runneth over the side of her bowl. I feel like we're off to a terrible start. So we go back to the monster, I remember to heal up this time first, and we try again. This time, Trix immediately gets a couple of strong attacks in, including a critical hit, and Magma Bomb does some strong work. Trix almost immediately gets Bush Bashed, but I go full offense, immediately taking out Bulb 1 with a Magma Bomb and severely damaging the second one. I then heal up with a tablet, get hit with a strong attack, and my next set of attacks brings this fiend down to critical health. Fortunately though, it next targets Magic Spoon with a Bushwhacker, sparing my Trix, and she's able to finish off the battle with a physical attack. And now that the battle is done, I complete the most important task of the game. I open Pip's cage so that he can escape. And we will circle back to Pip a little bit later because he is the most important character in this this run. This challenge would be impossible without him. But until then, we'll stick with just Trix. And unfortunately, our next opponent is Trix's target audience, a small and vicious child named Marcy. And Marcy might give us some issues. Marcy is blue innate, meaning we do extra damage to her, but she also does a lot of extra damage to us. The key then is liberal red element use. I start by stealing a pair of dancing shoes from her, changing the field effect to red. But after that, we're all offense, and within 2 strings of physical attacks, I'm able to bring her down to critical health. But at critical health, Marcy becomes a monster. She gains the ability to use 2 ice blasts in a row, decimating my team. However, what I didn't know before this run is that if she kills a character with her first cast, she won't use it a second time. So she targets Oatmeal, he dies, and then she can't cast it again. This allows me to get off a magma bomb with Trix. But then Marcy makes a critical error. She uses Cure Plus to heal, allowing me to hit her with a fireball and a couple of physical attacks to take her down, yielding the 7th star and a juicy strength and magic point for Trix. But it's not over yet, because we have to fight the arch enemy of cereal, a beast so ferocious that it could literally lick all of the milk out of a cereal bowl. A pretty kitty. That joke was stupid. We can edit that one out. Actually, no, we can't. Sorry. Okay, well, Lynx is an interesting enemy. I found out in my blue-only run that if I use elements on him, he'll cast Imbecile after the first one, and then a Hell Soul after every subsequent element. And Hell Soul is awful because it has a chance of causing instant death. So this time, I pilfer from him and then focus exclusively on physical attacks. And Lynx almost exclusively focuses attacks on Oatmeal, taking him out very quickly, and Magic Spoon. So I quickly get him down to low health, and he heals with a Nostrum. However, I'm doing about 100 damage with each string of normal attacks, so after 2 of those and a Magma Bomb, he's back in critical health. And despite his previous pattern, at low health he uses Gravitone and not Hell Soul. So I attack him a couple more times, heal, and attack some more, and the cat goes down. Trix gets a fantastic 8th star with more magic and strength at this point, but unfortunately it doesn't matter. This cat has poisoned his claws, disabling her and making the path forward that much harder. With Trix now crippled, we have a big decision to make. On one hand, I can choose to let her die from poison. This actually isn't a bad option because it'll let me get both Graco and Matcha, so I'll have 2 red characters instead of 1. But that's not what we're going to do. We're going to save her, and you will see why very soon. And because we offer to save her, Korcha lends us his boat, and we name him Special K. And don't buy a boat. Now that certainly doesn't seem appropriate for this video. Right? We then head to the funeral home and recruit an extremely important character, Graco. He is currently our only red innate character, and we will be relying on him to smack down a bunch of enemies in the coming battles. And we name him Smacks before we equip him with an Iron Mail and a bunch of red elements. Unfortunately, I didn't unequip Trix, so I'm unable to access her equipment. Otherwise, I would have just made an Iron Glove for Smacks instead. And let's come back to that in a few minutes because that failure is about to cause a lot of suffering. We head into the Hydra Swamp next, and our first mandatory battle is with some party Bibas. If not taken out quickly, this Biba will summon friends, and unfortunately I can't beat down the Bibas quickly enough to prevent their summoning. And Smack shows his weaknesses here. He's a great physical attacker and is extremely bulky, however he has terrible stamina recovery, which is awful when fighting solo, and his magic attack stat is atrocious. With a more magically adept character, my Magma Bombs would do a ton of damage, but his do a measly 11 damage at maximum. However, they do have another more important impact, which is that they allow Smacks to change the field effect to red, increasing the power of his physical attacks. Still though, it's 4 Bibas against 1 froggy wrestler, so it's a bit touch and go. And that's particularly true since we can only heal with wimpy tablets. But still, Magic Spoon is an adequate meat shield, and before he gets taken out, Smacks is able to accidentally run away from battle. That's a fail. But if you want to know about all my fails, it is imperative that you join the Tantacles Discord community. That's where I post behind-the-scenes updates and inform my viewers about when I'm live streaming these challenges. I try to do all of these challenges live on YouTube so that my viewers can chat with me and laugh at my cerebral inadequacies. So click the link in the description-do and come hang out with us. Okay, so after that fail, there's nothing left but to try again. And this time, I change my approach slightly. Because I won't be able to kill the main Biba before he summons, I take my attention off of him and focus on his friends first. The main Biba restores all of his HP after his final summon, so it's not worthwhile to focus on him initially. So after some elements and a ton of attacks, we defeat our first Biba, and that relieves a lot of pressure on Smacks. However, he's below half health, so I still have to take great care to heal appropriately with tablets. Fortunately though, once the Biba army takes down Oatmeal, Smacks' stamina recovery issues are much less noticeable. And Smacks now takes a quarter less attacks because we've killed one of the Biba. And we work our way through the rest of the Bibas, starting with the Summoner Biba, who goes down pretty quickly. Now at only Biba 2 against 1, but Smacks is at dangerously low health. But this is enough to give him a huge advantage since he now only takes a maximum of 24 damage per round. Given the tablets heal 30, the Biba's Biba very unlikely to defeat me. So Biba number 3 goes down, and finally, so too does Biba number 4. This generic battle is honestly one of my least favorite battles in the game, but we've made it through and I rejoice. And for our victory, the Bibas give us the Biba Flute. But alas, the Biba Flute is a trap. It forces us into a battle with the Wingipede. And while this battle hasn't been awful in my other runs, it's pretty dangerous in this one. The Wingipede has access to some powerful green elements like Arrow Blaster, and it can exert a ton of control over the field effect with its acidic gas attack. Oatmeal goes down to one of those Arrow Blasters, and 2 poison gases bring Magic Spoon down real low, and he's taken down by a physical attack. Smacks is then able to get the Wingipede down to critical HP, but he gets Arrow Blasted, and his sweet crunchy wheat nuggets are blown away, giving me my 3rd death and making me regret this challenge terribly. But I'm no stranger to throwing milk against the wall and seeing what sticks, so I aim for another mini level. But unfortunately, I then get smacked down by a pair of goblins, which is frankly embarrassing. But I have a realization here. I need more iron equipment for Smacks. Fortunately, I created an extra save file for myself right before Lynx, so I fight him again, unequip Tricks, but then a comedy of errors follows. I accidentally choose not to save Tricks, so I backtrack to after defeating Lynx, but at that point it's too late to unequip Tricks again, so I have to go back to Lynx, fight him a 3rd time, unequip Tricks, add about a bajillion entries to my fail counter, and finally choose to save Tricks. But there is a silver lining, because Graco's nickname was not good enough. There is a much better candidate for the name Smacks, and so instead I named Graco Booberry because he's an exorcist. I get him an iron glove and an iron mail, and then we head back to the swamp. I fight the Bibas, who now go down much more easily given Booberry's higher physical damage, and we head back to the Wingipede. So I head on in, realize I forgot to heal everyone, and run away like a big boo baby. But okay, we're back in. The damage is far better in the first attack string, and acidic gas goes off, but fortunately, Booberry evades the poison. On the second acidic gas though, Booberry goes down to critical health and then gets destroyed by a physical attack string. But I give it one more try, this time with the antitoxinal cap, which prevents poison. The first poison gas does a bunch of damage that I heal off, and then some physical attacks and a clothesline attack hit the Wingipede hard. The next acidic gas attack misses, which is an amazing bit of RNG, and Booberry gets a critical hit on his next string of physical attacks, which does a ton of damage and brings the Wingipede down to critical health. So I play conservatively, and on the next turn, the Wingipede misses 2 out of 4 attacks. Unfortunately though, so do I, because Booberry's accuracy is awful. But once again, the next poison gas misses, allowing me the leeway to finish off the Wingipede. We got through it, and it felt awful. But we save, fall through a hole, and drop directly into our next battle with the Penta Pussy and its Tantacles. Fortunately, the Penta Pussy is blue, meaning we can do extra damage and weaken its attacks with red elements. However, offensive red elements results in a huge counterattack. Tablets, however, do not, meaning I can focus my element levels on healing. My next string of attacks plus a clothesline do massive damage, but so too does the Pentapus, who takes out Booberry with 2 sets of physical attacks. But as a proud idiot, I know that bashing my head against the wall can't make me any more stupid than I already am, so I heal up and I head back in. And things start out pretty well. I attack and clothesline, Magic Spoon gets hit with a huge whopper of an attack, and then the Pentapussy takes out Booberry with some strong physical attacks. Yeah, this is going terribly. Okay, attempt number 3. Magic Spoon goes down quickly, and Booberry still has a ton of health left, and a second Hexa hitter takes down Magic Spoon. So a strong tech and some physical attacks take down Booberry once again. So I head through the swamp and aim for a mini star. After gaining a star, characters in Chrono Cross can gain a mini star. This mini star will give them extra stats, and they do it by just fighting in a few regular similar encounters. You can only get these extra stats once per star, and the stats you get at the mini-star are the same as the stats you'll get after the next star. I see Blueberry's next mini-level, and it's stellar, no pun intended. More magic strength and physical resistance. So it's time to save and try again. I only use physical attacks and tablets to minimize the Penta Pussy's damage, and I find myself missing very few attacks. And with the extra power Blueberry gets from field effect and a few lucky criticals, the Penta Pussy goes down extremely quickly. So we recruit Razzly and we name her Lucky Charms. Because fairies and leprechauns are the same thing, right? But you know what isn't the same as leprechauns? Dwarves. And it's time to fight 6 of them. Unfortunately, they hit hard with their Hi-Ho Chorus attack, and Blueberry goes down to critical health almost immediately. He heals up, but a second Hi-Ho Chorus brings him right back down. But by killing both of the Daggy Dwarves first, I prevent the attack from happening again. I then go after the Daffy Dwarfs since they'll use powerful magic attacks when they're alone, and we get our next star. And of course, as expected, it's the same as that amazing mini-star we got earlier. And now that we've defeated the Dwarves, it's time to defeat the ultimate serial killer, the Hydra. Blueberry's physical attack damage is adequate, and because he's so bulky, the Hydra is having some issues. The Hydra mainly uses physical attacks, and it only uses them one at a time. This means that the piddly damage it can do is easily healed off by a single tablet. And of course, the tablet use has a secondary effect that you probably already expect if you've been paying attention. It strengthens Blueberry's attacks. However, once the Hydra feels sufficiently threatened, it casts spirits up on itself and spirits down on my party, manipulating defense. But Blueberry is close to full health, isn't threatened by this tactic at all, and transforms this Hydra into a Cheerio, which we take and feed to Trix, which revives her from her spoiled milk-induced coma. And that is amazing, because we now have 2 red innate characters, and that means my life is about to get a whole lot better, I think. Before we move to our next section, I recruit Mel and I name her Peeps. Yes, that is a real cereal, and no, I will not be trying it because it seems absolutely disgusting. But despite our devastating gustatorial setback, I brush the odious and glittery sugar crystals off of my team and head to Radius's island. And there I encounter the very reason we saved Trix instead of letting her die, the moon glasses. This item reduces incoming damage by 25%, and given how terrible my healing is, they are crucial to the challenge. And they can only be acquired in one battle, the battle against Harl. Amazingly, I managed to steal them from her on the first try. They do have a small drawback, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. The rest of the battle with Harl, though, is pretty easy, so we plow through her and move on. I next bring my band of Crunchies to the Element Shop. Level 3 offensive elements are available now, so I stock up on Fire Pillars and equip them to almost every slot, and then I head on to a pivotal part of this challenge, the Ghost Ship. Before I can tell you why it's pivotal, though, I have to fight 3 mini-bosses: the Skeletons, Polly the Dragon Parrot, and Fargo. And they're all easy. So anyway, this part of the challenge is pivotal because we get one of the most broken characters of the run. Pip is a white innate. However, Pip is a special cornflake. I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but basically the game gives Pip a certain number of color points depending on whether he visualizes, casts, or is affected by an element. And once his color counter reaches a certain number, he evolves into a devil or an angel, and his innate color permanently changes. Now initially I just have Trix use a ton of red tablet elements on Pip, but I eventually realized that it's taking forever. So since it doesn't really affect the challenge at all beyond transforming Pip, I make a small exception to the rules and I allow Pip to use a bajillion red tablet elements on himself. And I do that until he evolves into the cutest little devil you've ever seen. And once that happens, Pip is red, so we can use him for the rest of the game. And that will be really important once our little Oatmeal twink grows some hair, but we'll get to that along with some other reasons that Pip is broken in just a bit. Oh, and I forgot to mention that I named little Pip Pip. Cheerio.
Oh, brother, this...
After I greedily chomp down my Cheerios, the final battle of the Ghost Ship awaits, Deadhead. And while this boss hasn't been too big of a deal in my prior challenges, my lack of healing in this one is really starting to become an issue. He starts by using Diminish, which in most fights is great. It halves all element damage. But the problem is that Deadhead can also inflict the blind status, which will make my physical attacks basically unhittable. Fortunately though, Deadhead's first Death's Odor does not inflict darkness on anyone, meaning I can do full damage with all of my characters. And the second time, it also doesn't inflict darkness. But Deadhead has more tricks than that up its sleeve, and it does almost 3/4 of Cheerios Cheerio's health pool with one set of attacks. Fortunately though, with 2 tableteers healing him, I'm able to recover his health fairly quickly to near full. But fortunately, Deadhead then takes out Oatmeal, sparing Trix and Cheerio. But not having my meat shields lights a milky fire under my butt. But Trix strikes with a couple more physical attacks and we turn him into a dead Deadhead. Next in the story is Fort Dragonia, but we have an errand to run first. We head over to Water Dragon Isle to fight the mascots of the generic form of Lucky Charms, the dwarves. And since this battle is the same as the one in the swamp, but we now have 2 characters instead of 1, we just bowl right through them. But we will have no such luck with the next boss, the Hi-Ho tank. The problem is that this tank has a couple of hugely powerful attacks. The first one is its element shot, which can be any element color, and I get lucky the first time I fight it. It uses blue element shot on Oatmeal, which actually freezes him. That would have been devastating on anyone else. It then casts a blue element shot on Trix, who fortunately has the moon glasses equipped, and she takes only moderate damage. So I heal her up, but it's at this point that I realize something. The moon glasses have a big disadvantage in this fight. Yes, it decreases the damage characters take in the fight, but they also decrease the damage characters heal from consumable elements by 25%. And while this may not be a huge deal given our tablets only heal 30 in battle to begin with, it might be enough when using multiples to cause us to die. But even worse, once you defeat the tank's 2 sidekicks, it goes berserk. It starts getting double attacks, and in particular, its area of effect gun attacks move twice. And this completely wrecks my little corn puffs. It then hits Trix with a green element shot, which does a lot of damage. I heal, and it gets in one of those double attacks, but both characters are now hanging by a thread. But then finally, it roughs Kit up with a bulldozer strike, spreading her grainy guts all over the floor. And I try this fight a few more times, but it just does not go right, and it's oops all berries over and over and over. The last time I try it though, I make a new discovery. Rather than killing both sidekicks, I leave one alive to see if I can prevent the tank from going berserk. And this does work. It never does a single double attack with one of the sidekicks alive. Unfortunately though, this strategy has a different drawback. Eventually, the leftover dwarf heals the tank for 112 damage, undoing a ton of my work. And then, relatively quickly, the tank uses a powerful yellow element shot, taking down Cheerio. But what I ultimately realized from these attempts is that Cheerio just isn't bulky enough to be helpful in this battle. We need someone bigger and stronger, and perhaps someone a little bit more spirited, if you will. Yeah, we need Booberry. His HP, defense, and physical attack are higher than Cheerio's, meaning even with my healing being completely inadequate, he stands a much better chance of surviving. And as a side note, there are far better Halloween cereals than Booberry, and a couple of them will be featured later in this run. So stay tuned for that, kids. Actually, on second thought, this video is not for children. The first time I try this battle, the tank starts with a white element shot, which does a hilarious amount of damage to Booberry. But Booberry's physical offense is pretty amazing. He does about double what Cheerio was doing. I take down the first sidekick, but then the tank hits Booberry down pretty low with a white element shot. I like to go full offense for now, hitting a magma burst on the tank, and then I target the dwarven sidekick, getting him down to critical health. But right away, he goes for repair, undoing a good bit of my work. The tank then goes for a gun attack, and while it does some damage to Trix, it does literally nothing to Booberry. But it then hits Trix with a powerful white element shot, bringing her down to critical health. I heal Trix, anticipating that the tank will go berserk after my next action, taking down the second sidekick. I then hit a heavy attack with Booberry, taking down the rest of his stamina to 0, but Trix still has 1 stamina left with a full set of element levels. So rather than heal, I once again go full offensive and scorch this metal monstrosity with a fire pillar. And that spell is enough to take it out. But if you thought this battle was hard, just you wait. Things are about to get freaking crazy up in here. Anyway, before we move on to the volcano, I put Cheerio back in the party. Even though he wasn't in the party for the last battle, he still got stats from the last star, so he isn't far behind. We then have another fight with Crackle and Pop, who are somewhat pitiful, and move on to the fire dragon. Because he's red innate, he's a bit harder than in a normal run. Again, he does less damage, and so do we, and our healing is pretty mid. And his fire breath still does a ton of damage since we can't change the field effect away from all red. On his first try, he takes down Cheerio real low with a few fire breaths, but once I heal Cheerio, the dragon targets Oatmeal with the next one, giving us a reprieve. But then he targets Cheerio again, bringing bringing him down real low again. But 2 tablets brings him up to a save space, and the next fiery breath hits Trix instead. She has the moon glasses equipped, which greatly mitigate his damage. Suffice it to say though that I'm constantly struggling to heal off all of his damage, but I'm generally able to heal off around 3/4 of what he can dish out before he uses another fiery breath. So eventually either he'll die or I'll run out of juice. And eventually Cheerio crumbles and falls, meaning it's time to run. On my second try, I try to play more offensively and Cheerio goes down almost immediately. And I realize that once again, I'm gonna need a little bit of booberry. Cheerio just isn't doing enough damage per attack yet to be viable in this battle. But even more importantly, I take another drastic measure. I purchase some Strengthen elements. Strengthen is simple. It increases physical attack damage, which will allow me to get through this battle more quickly. With physical attack damage reduced due to elemental resistance, it's key that we do as much damage as possible as quickly as possible. And after casting Strengthen on Booberry, he is quite formidable. And while he takes about as much damage as Cheerio does, getting way low on health, he and Trix are able to go on the super offensive and take out this lizard on the first try. I mean, not my first try, but we'll take it, whatever. But there's one more challenge left in this bowl of flaming hot Cheetos cereal. Oh god, I can't believe I just said that. Wait a minute. Is that a real cereal? Well, that would be extremely disgusting. No. Hello, it's me, Captain Tantacles. Did you miss me? So we put Cheerio back in the party and we sail our beautiful boat directly to the next set of bosses. 3 honorable mariners by the names of Marcy, Karsh, and Zoa. Karsh opens with an axial act, hitting all of my characters for damage that can only be described as mediocre. But even so, he's not the biggest threat in this battle. We actually first pursue Marcy given her blue coloring. She can do a tremendous amount of damage to our red characters, but she is severely defensively lacking. Perhaps she should have purchased her own boat instead of borrowing someone else's. Yes. And she quickly falls. And next we pursue Karsh due to his powerful multi-target attacks, of which he does not get the chance to use another. And finally Zoa, who has made the brilliant decision to wear a boat for a hat, is left landlocked without his companions and is quickly dried out by a devastating fire pillar spell. Now let me tell you a story. As a child, my father would often take me out in his rowboat. Refreshing. Don't buy a boat. And now it's time to head into Fort Dragonia. After activating the yellow and red switches and grabbing a free magma burst, we head on to fight a terrifying opponent, the hottest girl of them all, the lumpy space blob. And I do mean it, she's quite sexy. Anyway, this fight is quite terrifying for Trix and Cheerio. He exerts excellent element control, can freeze with those same elements, and can do a ton of damage. LSB starts by using powerful blue elements, including a terrifying ice blast, which freezes my Trix in place. But Cheerio now has a secret weapon. Up until now, my healing has been completely crappy, but that changes now. Cheerio's level 5 tech Soothe heals both a massive amount of HP and heals the party's stamina. And in addition, this tech is red elemental, meaning it causes the LSB to do less damage. But that doesn't mean the battle is over. Trix thaws and uses her red pin attack, and Cheerio uses a powerful magma burst. But there's one more thing that you need to know about the LSB. Using red elements against it modifies its attack pattern and allows it to cast the devastating iceberg spell. And this spell takes down Cheerio. And since I need Cheerio to get as many star levels as possible for later, I run. But as always, I'm no stranger to suffering, and I'm ready to suffer a second time. I start off this time with a weaken attack to prevent heavy physical damage, and then I get hit with a powerful take-in. I focus my energy on using tablets rather than using red attack spells, and then I accidentally run away. Now listen, this is the only thing that I hate about the Chrono Cross remaster. The speed up function is invaluable, especially for challenge runs. But on the Switch, that same function causes button inputs to get doubled. So this actually happens quite a bit, and it's my fault. And just assume that 90% of the fails I document are that. Anyway, third try. I use Strengthen on Cheerio to start, and that does a great job at increasing his physical attack damage. After that, I focus on burning tablets to impact the field effect. Unfortunately though, he gets hit by a take-in next, which freezes him, and I cast Weaken on the LSB. He does eventually thaw, but then an ice blast hits Trix, freezing her instead. But still, I focus on using tablets to heal and prevent prevent more damage. Trix gets taken in again and goes down to critical health, but Cheerio brings out his Soothe tech, effectively bringing her back to life. Fast forward a bit, and LSB uses Ice Blast again on Cheerio, and he gets frozen again. But I am ever persistent, and I get him healed to over 3/4 health before the next big attack. And that attack is a take-in on Oatmeal, the best thing that could possibly happen because it protects my cereal cuties from harm. Ultimately, my goal here is to get the blob down to critical health before I start wailing on him with red elements. This will ensure that I can kill him before he has the chance to use Iceberg. So eventually, I use Trix's red pin, which gets the LSB down to low health, but it isn't over yet. I need to end it fast. I have Cheerio use a Magma Burst, which does massive damage, but it isn't dead yet. And I'm sweating. I have Trix use another light attack, and that's it. It's over. I've done it. And we have just a few more bosses until we meet Chester the Cheetah and try out Sweetos. I next get one of the most stellar mini-levels I've ever seen. Both Trix and Cheerio get strength and magic. But then it's time to milk the mumu, because dry cereal is bad. The green mumu focuses on physical attacks and techs, but his magical defenses are far worse than those of the LSB. And to my delight, the mumu pursues Oatmeal first, clearly preferring a more creamy breakfast. But after killing him, he makes a big mistake, no pun intended. He goes after Trix, hoping his lactation will leave her at the station. Wait a minute, it's a male cow, so lactating. Ugh, I think I'm lactose intolerant now. Anyway, it's a mistake because with the moon glasses, she takes far less damage from his attacks than Cheerio would, but he does get her down to critical health before Cheerio uses his Soothe tech, restoring her back to a far more reasonable level of health. But I keep bearing down on him with magic, and he then doubles up on Cheerio, bringing him to critical health. So it's now or never. I hit another fire pillar, heal up Cheerio as much as I can, but then Cheerio goes down and it's time to try again. And it doesn't start great. This time, Trix is the initial target, but again, the moon glasses do a great job protecting her. But this time, I have a secret weapon, the Weaken skill, which will reduce physical attack damage from the mumu. I unload with Trix and Cheerio's techs to deal some initial damage and change field effect, and then I strengthen Cheerio. And this time, the mumu attacks Cheerio and Trix pretty equally, forcing an early Soothe tech to heal, but Trix goes down this time. But on try number 3, things start off better. Oatmeal gets attacked first, and I pour all of my efforts into casting magic and tech since those do far more than physical damage. Oatmeal immediately goes down on the second attack of the fight, but that is just fine. I bear down even more with Magma Bursts and Fire Pillars, and I heal Cheerio to try to preserve my Soothe tech. But then I have a stroke of luck. Mumu's next physical assault against Cheerio misses, allowing me to get in 2 more strong magic attacks with a completely red field. And then he attacks Trix, meaning I can survive another double assault if necessary. So I keep tableting to change field effect, and the mumu goes after Trix again, bringing her down to low health. But it doesn't matter, because Cheerio takes out the mumu with a couple more physical attacks, and I didn't even use my Soothe healing. And since we got a great start at the mini level, this star level is amazing and exactly the same. I think I explained star levels a little bit more in detail in my blue only challenge, and I'll put a link to that in the Discridly blue. But the struggle isn't over yet, because our next opponent is Sunnyos. And yes, that is another real cereal, but it is much less disgusting than Sweetos. And while this bloated light source may have good defenses, that is not its most annoying quality. It can both cast the Kissy Wissy spell, which inflicts the stop status, and even worse, the Holy Light spell, which does massive damage and inflicts the fatigue status. And that status causes my characters to spend more stamina for each action. But that Holy Light spell takes us down low, so I have to use an early Soothe. And while attacking, my characters get pelted with a photon beam and then a meteor shower, and things are looking pretty dire. But I tablet up and have Trix cast Red Pin, which fortunately does physical damage. And after this, Sunny D really doesn't cast much else that's threatening. He just repeatedly casts Strong-Minded and Weak-Minded, and then doesn't cast any spells to capitalize on the buffs and debuffs he inflicts. So soon after, he supernovas, and we say hello to Eternal Darkness. And by Eternal Darkness, I mean the final boss in this gauntlet, the Bunyip. And this one's gonna be fun. The Bunyip is Redinate, and in his first form, he uses the Inferno spell. But we have a secret weapon, a trap spell. By casting our trap spell, we can both prevent Inferno from damaging us and take the spell to be used in a future battle. And that's exactly what I do. In fact, I purposely capture several Inferno spells and run so that I'll have them for later. But then, the game is on. After taking some damage, Bunyip transitions into phase 2, which is Blackenate. And since I've spent so long talking about how badly the other battles went, let's just skip to the victory music. Full offense. It just worked. I didn't even use Cheerios healing. Weird. We next ascend to the heavens to fight Viper. And I wasn't sure if there was a good joke about snakes and cereal here, so I called my mom to see if she had an idea. And it wasn't a very productive discussion, so I edited it out of the video. Actually, I made an editorial decision to keep the phone call in. Here it is. Hey Mom, I have a question.
Why are you calling me? Do you need money again?
Can't a guy call his mom without being interrogated? Okay, do snakes like cereal? Is there a joke there?
I'm not lending you any more money. Get a job.
So, okay, whatever. Viper was pretty easy. But now we're on to the one animal that can dry out my cereal by lapping up all the milk. The pretty kitty. And Lynx is one bad cat. So I equip all of my newly trapped Infernos and my best red elements, and it's time to slay this naughty meow meow. I start off the battle with physical attacks, and Lynx immediately laps up Oatmeal with a glide hook attack. I get off an Inferno, and then Cheerio gets hit hard by some physical attacks, but the damage is manageable. I then hit a Magma Burst and continue bearing down, but Lynx seems dead set on killing Cheerio at this point, bringing him down to critical health. But I'm able to get off 3 tablets before the next strike. Another glide hook hits Trix, but with her moon glasses, the damage is paltry and her red pin brings Lynx down to critical health. But then another stroke of luck. Lynx attacks 3 times and 2 of them miss, and a medium and heavy attack from Cheerio is enough to send this tiger back to the zoo. But alas, this kitty has other plans. He's had all of his teeth pulled, meaning all he can eat is oatmeal. But eating the oatmeal won't satisfy him. He wants to become the oatmeal. Honestly, that's a pretty common desire. Please leave me a comment if you've ever wanted to become oatmeal. I support you. Given that our Oatmeal has become a cat, we now require what the kids call a Gruel substitute, and we therefore name Sprigg Porridge. And on recruiting Harl, we name her Chocula. We head back to our homeworld, and given that our mom expected Oatmeal to return home and not a kitty, she alerts the authorities within a specific radius, which means that we have to fight that radius. And this is awkward, because we no longer have any red characters in our party, but we do have one steaming pot of porridge. And Porridge can use her doppelgang ability to mold her hot, gruely self into a red monster for us. But we only have one available, and ironically, it's another pretty kitty. And this kitty is kind of one of the worst doppelgangs ever. It has no healing available, middling physical attacks, and no great element attacks to speak of. Fortunately though, it does have the strengthen spell to increase its offenses. In order for this fight to go well, everything has to go absolutely perfectly. And the first time we fight Radius, that is not what happens. Radius targets my pretty kitty right away with his long shot tech, and then targets him again with a photon beam, bringing his health low enough that I just run. On attempt number 2, I get Porridge transformed, and things start out a good deal better. Long shot targets the chocolate one, I strengthen my cat, and then photon beam hits the chocolate one again. I then make a mistake though. I cast the 99 spell on my cat. This spell makes my physical attacks guaranteed to hit, but it also wastes a ton of my necessary stamina, especially since the cat already has an 89% chance of hitting with his fierce attack. Radius then casts the Inferno attack, and my cat goes way down low, and I hit him as hard as I can, but he triple attacks into the feline, and I die. This battle bites, kind of like a cat. My third try I get overdamaged, and I have to run, and I have a running away accident on try number 4, and try number 5, which was actually going amazingly. And on 6, I once again get overdamaged and run. On try number 7, though, the future is looking a little less runny. I get transformed and immediately cast Strengthen. and Radius really seems to be focusing down on my teammates. I physically attack exclusively, and Radius takes down Lynx with an Inferno, Chocula with a long shot, and gets me down to 42 HP. I hit hard with a strong attack, and he strikes back, getting me to 5 HP. So I hit with a moderate attack and a strong attack, and this stale honey bunches of oats forfeits. And I don't think I've ever been more happy in my life. Well, except the time that I googled Tony the Tiger Rule 34. But don't do that at work. I warned you, it will not end well. Anyway, Radius now joins our party, and I name him Grape Nuts because size matters. And at this point, things get a lot better for us. I head through Viper Pass to Termina, and there I recruit Zappa, whom I name Apple Zaps. And this means we now have an actual red character. He's definitely not our best option given his poor stamina recovery, but he's better than nothing and has pretty good physical attack, so I'm not complaining. I also recruit Van, whom I name Raisin Van, and Norris, whom I name Corn Pops. And Corn Pops lends us his boat. Now normally I'd say something crappy about boats here, but this time a boat saves my life. You know, I think I'll let that one slide. And the boat saves our life because we take it to Mount Pyre, which we head on through and into Fort Dragonia. Now, normally I'd wait to access this area until I obtain the Dragon tier. That would allow me to bypass all of the puzzles. But not this time, and you'll see why in just a second. So I solve all the puzzles, activate the pedestals, grab the Volcano from the red section, and finally take the elevator down to the incubator. And remember how we captured that egg from a dodo nest earlier in the game? Well, we pop that egg into the incubator, and out hatches our savior Draggy. And I name him Ego. And I finally experience relief. Because after this recruitment, I released a huge fart. But I also experienced relief because I finally had 2 red characters to fight with, so things are finally getting better. Now that our team has achieved a beautiful crimson glow, we head on to the SS Zelbus. There we have our next battle with the Sage of Marbule, and given how hard this challenge is about to get, I am so thankful for an easy battle. The Sage of Marbule has powerful elements to use, but he'll only cast them if you use an element against him. So we just physically attack him with both of our Scarlet superheroes, and he goes down. But now this run takes a turn for the worse. After a quick stop off at the Dead Sea, we are stymied by a big-ass sword, and Grape Nuts tells me that the only way around it is with an even bigger sword that we have to steal from a dead guy that he killed. So I head to the Isle of the Damned to rob his grave. However, I'm assailed by the sword owner's ghost, Garai. And as usual, Garai is a huge pain. He's a white innate enemy with gargantuan attacks on both the physical and magical side, and both of our red characters have no healing techs. So basically, if everything doesn't go perfectly, we will die. And everything is definitely not gonna go perfectly. We start off strong though, and he initially attacks the pretty black kitty. I weaken him to reduce his physical attack damage, and then he uses triple cut on Ego. Fortunately, Ego has the moon glasses equipped so it doesn't hit too hard. I then use strength on Apple Zaps, Lynx goes down to a critical hit, and Ego gets hit hard by some physical attacks. I start healing him up and then have a stroke of luck. Garai hits Lynx with his strongest attack, Willbreaker, wasting most of its damage and taking him down. Unfortunately, now there are no targets except Apple Zaps and Ego, and Garai bears down on Apple Zaps, taking him to critical health. At this point, I realize that if Apple Zaps gets attacked, it's over, so I focus on boosting Ego's HP, but to no avail. He gets taken out by a searing Willbreaker. And this boss stymied me for hours. Either my luck was so bad that I died early, or I just couldn't get enough damage output to win the hilariously unbalanced battle of attrition. But on attempt number bajillion-and-1, my strategy comes together. I have Ego do a single physical attack and then strengthen Apple Zaps, and I have him focus on doing physical damage. Then I let Ego focus on magical damage since his physical stats are pretty lackluster. Ego takes the first triple cut and then hits with a hot Volcano. Lynx takes the next battery of attacks, but then Ego gets hit by a Willbreaker. However, rather than try to heal since he's so low on HP, I merely have Ego strengthen Apple Zaps. But unfortunately, Garai then attacks Ego viciously. But in a stroke of luck, Ego dodges his attack, strikes back, and hits with a huge Inferno. Garai's next triple cut hits Lynx, taking him down, and then he's at low HP. It's time to strike hard and fast. Another magma burst from Ego, and he goes down. But now is not the time to go slow. Apple Zaps physically attacks and survives a Willbreaker with 9 HP, and then hits hard hard with Hammer Blow, taking Garai down. And while Ego might be sad about missing this star level, surviving this battle is worth the sacrifice. And that means that we can now grab Garai's sword and head into the Dead Sea. But where there's a highwayman, and he coincidentally is our next boss. But before I fight him, I grab a quick mini-star from some enemies in the Dead Sea, and it's time for more pain. The highwayman has a couple of ways to make my life hell. First, he can inflict the darkness status with the exhaust gas tech, making my attacks unable to hit him. But second, he has the devastating rampage attack, which can destroy Apple's apps in one hit. And it does, so I run and try again. And fortunately, on my second try, that attack strikes Ego instead. And then I discover something hilarious. The darkness status appears to be glitched in this game. When your own characters are afflicted with darkness, it does stink that they're not able to make contact with their attacks. But oddly, the highwayman's attacks also miss more. And I know it's not just luck because they often miss 3 times in a row. Unfortunately though, Ego goes down with the second rampage, forcing me to try again. And my awful luck persists for quite a while. In fact, it takes me 21 tries total to get a good run of this boss going. I start by strengthening Apple's apps and weakening the highwayman. I then use Apple's apps hammer throw before highwayman casts exhaust gas, blinding only Ego. And then rampage takes out Lynx. But then I go physical offense with Apple's apps and full magic offense with Ego. Ego survives the next rampage with 3 HP, and I refuse to heal. But when Ego goes down and Apple's apps is my last hope, highwayman gets him down to 13 HP, but Apple Zap strikes back and the highwayman explodes. And there's just one more bit of pain we need to suffer before we see the light at the end of the cereal tunnel, because the final boss of this area is Miguel. Now, since I know someone will ask, the tragedians in this area just before him are a great source of elements. They cast level 6 elements, including Volcano, which can be trapped. However, with no healing, I decided it was just too risky and honestly not worth it, and I headed right through, which means it's time for Miguel. And I died a lot on this boss. I'm gonna play the sad music right here while I tell you about this boss, and then skip to when I won so I don't have to narrate a million attempts. Miguel always starts by casting anti-black, which does nothing since I can't use black elements anyway. Then he casts strong-minded, increasing his own magic defense. This is a bit annoying, but physical attacks are our main source of damage anyway. He then casts weak-minded, followed by Holy Dragon Sword. This attack is the main danger of the battle, and if I don't do anything to counter the field effect, it does even more damage and I will die. So I basically have to hit some red elements before that. Miguel will then physically attack once, which isn't too big a deal as long as he doesn't attack the character who got hit by Holy Dragon Sword. But then he'll cast Turn Black on a character, turning them black, which I hope is obvious because it's called Turn Black. And then he'll cast the Photon Beam element, which will do extra damage because of the turn element. And after this point, he just repeats the prior pattern, and the second Holy Dragon Sword is awful, because if it hits that person who has been changed to Blackenate, it's pretty much an instant kill. But even if you do survive, Miguel has a second attack pattern. After getting to a quarter health, Miguel will immediately cast the Meteor Shower element to an area of effect white element damage to all characters. The Meteor Shower element not only does pretty great damage, but it can also cause the fatigue status. That'll make characters use more stamina for each action. But even worse, he'll next use the Holy Light element, which does even more damage and is a pretty great way for him to finish off the rest of the party. So let me show you how insane this battle was. On my 20th or so try, I start off by strengthening Apple's apps with Ego, and he goes to town with some attacks, getting uselessly anti-blacked along the way. Then Ego misses a few attacks, and Miguel uses strong-minded, meaning he's about to use Holy Dragon Sword on the next turn. I then have Apple's apps immediately use Hammer Throw for strong physical damage, and Ego uses Weaken to lower Miguel's physical damage. But here is where I get a bit lucky. Miguel uses his first Holy Dragon Sword against Lynx, who takes the hit and immediately dies. But he's done his job. He absorbed the damage for the party. I continue to hit with physical attacks and magical attacks from Ego, and Miguel next uses Turn Black on Apple's apps and Photon Beam on him next. But that doesn't do too much damage, and the fatigue status doesn't hit. That means we can continue to fight him, heal up Apple's apps with some tablets, and wait for the next Holy Dragon Sword. And fortunately, the next Holy Dragon Sword hits Ego, and because of the moon glasses, it doesn't even come close to killing him. Ego re-strengthens Apple's apps, and then he uses his Hammer Blow tech to get some great damage in. The next Photon Beam hits Ego and brings him down to critical health, so I decide to go for broke and have him cast a Volcano. This immediately brings Miguel down to critical health and activates his secondary AI, but he doesn't get his turn right away, so I gamble on a heavy attack from Apple's apps and it hits. But after that, Miguel does get his turn and he casts Meteor Shower. This obliterates Ego, and I have to make a tough decision. If I attack with Apple's apps, I might finish the battle right away, but if I miss, there's a good chance that Miguel will immediately take me out with Holy Light. But even if I heal, there's a good chance his upcoming Holy Light will take me out anyway. However, because he would start up his next cycle, if I do survive, I'll have 2 turns to take him out, and I elect to have him heal. Holy Light comes through and he survives with just 3 HP. He hits a heavy attack and a mid attack, and Miguel casts anti-black, and he only has enough stamina for 1 light attack. He hits for 30 damage and Miguel goes down. Thus ends the worst part of this challenge. Now that we've defeated Miguel, we can freely switch between worlds. But before we continue snap, crackle, popping more bosses, I head into the swamp again. There, I grab the Life Sparkle, which we'll use a little bit later. I also fight some Teuton Shamans in Fossil Canyon. These cast a level 6 Volcano element when the field effect is all red. That means I can trap them, further enhancing my magic damage in future battles. And after that, I get Eggo's level 7 tech Big Breath from his dead mom. But it's not sad because he can do even more damage now. Most importantly though, I bounce my cat's butt up and down because she is cute, and she tolerates that. We head to the Rebel base in Termina, recruit Karsh, whom we name Carmella, and cosplay as sewer exterminators, and Rochester. I mean, we know this isn't Pokemon, but we also know that bug types are weak against fire types, right? And while you might guess that this overgrown dung beetle was easy, you would be right. Actually, you'd be right. Yeah, it died real quick. So after releasing an overly tanned pirate from prison, it's time for a much less painful boss gauntlet. Starting with Hell's Cook. The template is the same. Strengthen Applesap, slay with his physical attacks and techs, and have Eggo use magic damage. And while Eggo does get down to 65 HP, my damage is high enough to finish him off before disaster can strike. But the end of this battle heralds a huge change. Upon his defeat, the Hell Chef Orcha joins our party, and I call him Omelette. And Omelette's level 3 tech Spice of Life heals the entire party, which is a complete game changer. But that's not his only great quality. His strength and magic stats are both amazing, meaning he'll be able to put out a ton of damage in addition to having healing utility. But funny enough, we'll get an even more pivotal character in just a little bit. But first, we fight Grobic. This android focuses mostly on physical attacks. This means that after strengthening Omelette's physical attacks, I could choose to cast Weaken to completely nerf his damage. But I don't do it right away, and you'll see why in a second. Instead, I go full offense and just heal off his damage with Spice of Life. But after a few more attacks, I do weaken him, and the reason I waited is that he eventually uses the Vigora spell. This allows him to get off a bajillion attacks in a row. However, he goes after Lynx and can't even kill him, meaning it's all kind of a wash. And relatively quickly, he gets taken down to low health and goes down to a magma burst. But he's not the last obstacle in this section. The final boss in this marathon is the Guilot. The Guilot, the robot. It's another physically oriented robot. But fortunately, his physical attacks seem to lack power in this run, and my characters manage to take him down without even getting taken down low. There's a brief free fight, but that also isn't a problem, and we escape the area through a stained glass window. And completing this section grants us a battery of recruitments, none of which we can use. The android Grobic joins our party, and we call him Frankenberry, completing the Halloween cereal trifecta. We also use the life sparkle we got earlier on the plant in the castle courtyard to recruit Neofeo, whom we name Life. And before this run, I didn't know that you could recruit Neofeo during this section. I thought he was limited to the earlier part of the game. Riddell is christened Purity, Viper becomes King Vitaman, Fargo quite obviously is named Cap'n Crunch, Marcy becomes Honey Smacks, and Zoa rounds out the party as Milk. But all of these recruitments are just red herrings, because the most important recruitment of the entire challenge happens right now. Cheerio's just hanging out in the armory, and he's the only character from before we body swapped who will rejoin the party right now. He believes that it's what's on the inside that counts, which is beautiful, honestly. I love him. Anyway, as you might remember, Cheerio has a party-wide healing tech, meaning as long as we can kill things with reasonable speed, we should have no more healing problems for the rest of the game. After re-equipping Cheerio with elements and gear, we have one more element to obtain before we're ready to kill everything. Red Wolf. You can get these from the hot doggos in Homeworld's Mount Pyre. Just cast the trap element, make the field effect red, and wait for them to cast it. But after that, it's time to slay some dragons. 6 to be exact. I start off with the blue dragon, since I should be able to take it down pretty quickly. It's blue innate, so I can reduce its damage with my elements and do extra damage in return. It does hit hard with Deluge, but Cheerio's Soothe tech is able to heal off almost all of its damage. And relatively quickly, I'm able to finish off this wet beast with a Volcano. The yellow dragon is next, but before I fight him, I kill off some turtles. That makes me sad because I love turtles, but it makes me happy because their shells are made of denadorite, so I can re-outfit my breakfast with stone armor and weapons now. And this preparation serves me well. The yellow dragon is exclusively a physical attacker, about as lame as some of the yellow attackers in this game, and standard tactics work pretty well against him. Strengthening Omelet and using magic with Cheerio allow me to take him down without using either of my healing techs. The green dragon is next, but before I fight him, I have to kill off his protege, the Tyranno. This fierce dinosaur dies. The green dragon, though, is of course the most annoying dragon in existence. He can use the bad breath attack, which causes literally every status effect in the book. But even worse, he uses green field, completely turning the field effect green. And when the field effect is green, he can use the carnivore attack. But as long as I'm able to use a red element after he uses green field, I can negate that. And he does get in one carnivore, but otherwise I'm able to largely block it. So I burn him down with an Inferno. No regrets, I don't like him. Next up is the Black Dragon, and before we can fight him, we have to wake him up. And to do that, we have to finish the Marbule side quest. Why is the Black Dragon asleep? Well, one morning he dozed off into his bowl of cornflakes and he's been asleep ever since. Anyway, we complete this quest by bribing Captain Fargo with a big bowl of Cap'n Crunch. We then kill a bunch of innocent animals that were originally ghosts, but not really ghosts, and they were just kind of translucent and ethereal, but still very disruptive, even though they had no tangible impact on society. So basically, the residents of Marbule are terrorists. But apparently so am I, because I slaughter these poor blue people and head on to the Black Dragon. I strengthen Omelet and I go to town. And while the Black Dragon does have some strong physical damage, his magical damage is pretty lackluster and basically acts as a break, allowing me to heal up. His most dangerous spell is Free Fall, but he hits Lynx with it, making my life a whole lot easier. And while I do end up using both healing spells in my arsenal, the situation is not dire, and I finish off the Black Dragon with some devilish strikes from Cheerio. And last but not least, the bane of my existence in every other run so far, the Red Dragon. But considering the fact that this is my third challenge, you'd think I have this one in the bag. He starts in his teeny tiny lizard form, and I make sure Omelet is strengthened before the dragon goes through puberty, and I immediately set an Inferno trap. His initial fire breath does a good amount of damage, but we do resist it, and the second one brings us down low enough that I need to use Soothe. Inferno gets captured, and then I wail on him. He does use Strengthen, but I counter that with Weaken, severely reducing his damage. The next fire breath brings Omelet down to critical, but he heals with Spice of Life, and another fire breath brings him down low again. But then a second Inferno takes him out, and I gotta run. My bad. I should have trapped that. On the next try, though, I get it right. The Inferno trap goes up right away, and I give the dragon some early testosterone. I also use Spice of Life after his first fire breath to get ahead of the healing before I strengthen Omelet. The next fire breath doesn't hurt too badly, but I have a funny realization. Red elements definitely cure the Red Dragon, but physical red techs do not. For example, Omelet's Mystery Menu, which hits the dragon hard and even heals Omelet a bit. So I trap Inferno and reset that trap for later. The dragon strengthens, and I weaken him and then accidentally run away. Oh shit, it's happening again. Okay, on the next try, I wait until after the second fire breath to heal, trap the first Inferno, recast the trap, strengthen, weaken, and then kill. I use Mystery Meal for a teensy heal before fire breath number 4 and Soothe after it, and after Inferno number 2 is trapped, the dragon's health goes low. It strengthens, attacks, and casts a Brimstone, and a medium attack from Cheerio finishes him off. This is literally the best this battle has ever gone. Thank you, Dragon Jesus. Which means there's just one more dragon, the White Dragon. And while this battle has been easy in the past, he does have some tricks up his sleeve. For example, he casts Holy Healing, restoring a ton of his health, but that's fine. But what isn't fine is that he casts Magnify, massively increasing his magic damage, followed by Holy Breath, and that takes Cheerio and Omelet down to very low health. But I heal and barrage him with a combination of physical and magical attacks, and he goes down pretty quickly after that, which means we're done with all 6 dragons, and there's only one more obstacle left before we can shave our pussy and smooth out this oatmeal. So we recruit Stina, whom we name Albran, and head back to Fort Dragonia. And there we face our biggest obstacle yet, Dark Oatmeal, which is basically pudding. And pudding has some nasty tricks, but we have the cure. I start off with a Volcano trap, and you'll see why in just a second. He always starts with a string of attacks followed by Feral Cats, which does a lot of damage. But of course, we can heal that off with Spice of Life. Pudding then casts a Volcano element, but because of our trap spell, it does nothing. And we get a new toy to play with. I then bear down with physical attacks, the Red Wolf spell, a Volcano, and a Magma Burst. But he then gets off his Forever Zero attack, and because I haven't quite healed Omelette enough, he dies, and it's time to restart this battle. But the second time, the attacks go slightly differently. After I trap Volcano, I cast Red Wolf and heal with Soothe. This immediately leads into Forever Zero, but my team survives it. Unfortunately though, Black Hole takes out my entire team, and I die. But things go differently again on try number 3. We get Cat Scratched, I heal, I trap the Volcano, I cast Red Wolf, and Forever Zero takes out Omelette. Okay, I lied. Things didn't go differently that time. Sorry. But try number 4, I get a stroke of luck. Omelette gets a critical hit on one of his physical attacks, and I cast Soothe instead of Spice of Life. That allows me to hit with Red Wolf and be healed. I use Cheerio's Pounce attack, and that takes out Dark Surge before he can even cast Forever Zero, let alone Black Hole. That critical hit really mattered, but hey, I take the victories when I can get them. And this victory means I can finally make a new cup of oatmeal that doesn't have cat hair in it. And yes, maybe I use a bit too much water in the recipe, but with a little more cooking time, I'm able to remove every single lump and end up with a smooth, white, hot, carbohydrate-filled breakfast. Yes, I ran out of jokes for this transformation. And yes, I am making commentary on the injustice of gay male beauty standards despite being a beneficiary of them. And no, I am not sorry. Now that we're fully pourable again and not a cat, it's time to enter Chronopolis. However, blocking our way is the Queen of Mean, Aunt Javita with her 2 pancake arms. She has 3 phases, and being red in this battle is quite nice because she's red innate too, meaning her physical attacks are nerfed. But we have another huge advantage here. Aunt Javita uses the Volcano element, and we can once again use the Volcano trap element, so the battle is pretty easy, and as an added bonus, I get a free Volcano. The next battle with the Puffins Police starts off pretty well. Megaton Punch hits Omelette, which is not ideal, but after that, Puffy largely targets Oatmeal and takes him out. But there's a problem. It next uses its Bazooka attack, which does 677 HP of damage to Omelette. He didn't stand a chance. So the strategy then is to kill him as fast as possible so that he can't use his Bazooka at all. On my second attempt, he takes out Oatmeal with a Megaton Fist right away, sparing my other characters. But Bazooka then does over 500 damage to Cheerio, meaning he can't survive that under any circumstance. And that means I just kind of give up keeping both characters alive at this point. A few more attacks takes out this Police Puff, and we move on. The next boss is Fate, who has been an issue in other playthroughs. But before we head on to destroy the power of Destiny, I have to do a little collection. I need Power Seals, which will raise strength by 5 points, massively increasing Omelette's physical damage. Or Cheerio, if I ultimately find that he does more. And it takes forever, but I ultimately get 2 of them. I also make sure to grab the Forget-Me-Not pot from under the stairs. This will allow my characters to pour new monsters into Porridge's cauldron, so to speak. More on her later. But there's one more thing that's even more important that I have to get here. The recharge element. This stack of 5 is the only one available in the game. To get it, you just close all of the boxes and then type in 00 to the code machine. There are other ways to get it, but that's just the easiest way to do it. This red consumable element recharges all usable elements for one character up to level 5. And wouldn't you know it, Cheerio's Soothe Healing Tech is level 5, and recharge does in fact recharge techs. So this is a complete game changer. More on that later. But now it's time to fight Fate. And I think Fate is going to be pretty awful. Let me take you through my first attempt. Fate starts by casting Diminish, having all element damage for the entire fight. It then counts down to 4 and casts Gravitone. I cast Strength in here now that I have element levels. At the count of 3, Fate casts Heat Ray on Omelette, dealing huge damage to him. I counter that with Spice of Life to heal. At 2, Freefall hits Oatmeal, killing him. And at 1, Fate casts Gravity Ball ×2, which deals a little bit of damage, but more importantly, changes the field effect to black. This strengthens its next attack. But before that, I use Soothe and Omelette's Mystery Menu tech to heal. But then I get blasted with Dark Energy, and the cycle begins anew. And I get pretty far in this battle, but Fate ultimately takes down Omelette with its next Gravitone attack. But it actually seems doable. So on my second try, I strengthen up right away and get in some big attacks. Omelette gets in a huge physical hit before a Heat Ray hits Cheerio. But fortunately, with the moon glasses, Heat Ray doesn't do that much damage. Freefall once again takes out Oatmeal, and I heal once again after the double gravity blow. But this time, I'm much better positioned, and I try to get a little healing in before the next cycle kicks off. And once it does, I hit Fate with a Red Wolf summon. Unfortunately, Diminish markedly reduces the damage this attack does, but it's still a pretty big chunk. Gravitone hits and a couple of physical attacks take Fate down real low. But my characters are also doing pretty badly, so I use Spice of Life to give them a second chance. Unfortunately, Freefall then hits Cheerio, killing him. But once again, I decide that rather than restart the battle, I must sacrifice him, and a couple more physical attacks destroy Fate. But this leads to another disaster. The dragons decide that it's time to merge into an even bigger dragon, the Cereal Devourer. Or the Devourer of Cereal? I can never remember which one is which. Before we face the terrifying cereal-loving dragon, we have to head to the grocery store to grab some stuff. For starters, we need a better receptacle to hold our breakfast. So we head underwater, grab the star fragment, and go to fight Mega Starkey. Our team is hilariously overleveled for this battle, so he goes down real quick and we name him Bowl. Next, our good friend Trix is in a coma, and what better way to jolt her out of it than by having her confront her worst enemy. So I equip my Forget-Me-Not pot and gather some red monsters, most notably Torminator, Tragedienne, and Combat, and we head into the Grand Slam. There, I take part in a battle royale to recruit Janice. I obliterate the first round with Gizmotoid and a Red Kitty, the second round with Tragedienne, Torminator, and Hot Doggity, and the third round with Combat. And so we do in fact get Janice, whom I call Silly Rabbit. And unfortunately, even this does not rouse Trix, but hey, we tried. I then take a detour to grab the Master Hammer from Marbule and then head to Termina to learn how to make rainbow weapons for later. But now I really do want to rouse Trix, which means I need to do some more side quests. I put Carmella in my party and head to the Isle of the Damned. This means Cheerio has to win a solo battle against the two spicy cereal boys. And while Marcia and Mello are marginally harder than their tutorialized counterparts, one party member is enough to seal their fate pretty easily. But now for the really fun part. We have to fight Dario, who is often thought of as one of the hardest optional bosses in this game. And once again, Cheerio must fight alone. Purity must be in the party or he won't engage. But there's a fun strategy for this battle. Dario counters any spells you cast on him with spells of the opposite element, and the counter to red elements is Numble, which does no damage. So if you keep casting red elements on him, he can do literally nothing to your party members because he'll waste his turn casting useless spells. But unfortunately, the first time I fight him, I choose to heal Cheerio instead of keeping up the offensive, and Dario splits our little Cheerio in half like a deviled egg. But on the second try, I realize my mistake. I remove my tablets from allocation and place only offensive elements in my lower element slots. Dario takes out Oatmeal and Purity, and after that point, Cheerio gets plenty of stamina recovery to attack and debuff continuously. And eventually, he goes down and yields the Master Moon. And with this weapon, we're able to dissect Trix and head into her traumatic past. I actually failed this section the first time, which sounds weird, but if you go the wrong way, you can get stuck with only Oatmeal and be forced to battle with him. But once I figure out the route, I get through it with no problem. And to those of you who've experienced trauma, this is the solution. Just have a stranger find a weird sword and go back into your past to give you therapy. Easy, right? So now that we have our full roster of red characters, it's time to learn to fly. But guarding our jet engine is royal jelly, and I am quite excited to get my revenge. Notice how we've only used one non-red element so far? Well, this enemy can only be damaged by red spells, and it has been a huge obstacle in prior challenges. But in a red-only challenge, that's not a big deal. We smoke them with volcanoes, red techs, and magma bursts, and Bowl gets us our jet engine. So now that we can fly, it's time to head to the final dungeon of the game, Terra Tower. We now enter the Chrono Cross boss gauntlet. In between bosses, I gradually upgrade to rainbow equipment as much as possible, so just assume that's happening. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Boss 1 is Terrator, the yellow doll. It mainly uses physical attacks, and with my character's strong magic, they're able to Omega Yellow killed Omelet. Okay, try number 2. With their strong magic and a little bit of luck, they're able to it happened again. Well, Omelet has gotten all his stars and Cheerio hasn't, so we just have him end it. It's fine. Pyrotor is next, and because his red spells do very little damage, our physical attacks attacks take him down very quickly as well. No deaths this time, but we do get an amazing element after this fight, Red Field. Aptly, this element can immediately change the entire field effect to red, allowing me to immediately summon for massive damage. More on that later. I'm going to say immediately again, because that's fun for me. Animotor is next. It starts with 3 infoscopes to change the field effect to green, but I hit with a quick Volcano to change it up. Its Omega Green doesn't kill Omelet, even with the field completely green anyway though, so I'm not feeling too threatened. And a final Volcano from Omelet finishes off this windbag. The Black Elemental Gravitor is next, and the main struggle with him is his instant death spells. The first one, a Hellbound, hits and kills Oatmeal, and the second targets Cheerio, but he dodges. Unfortunately though, he goes down to a free fall, forcing me to start again. The second time, Omega Black hits Cheerio, and then he gets whacked with a ton of physical attacks, going down to 8 HP. This forces me to heal with Soothe, and Oatmeal then eats a Hellbound. But after that, Omelet dodges and next whacks this monster to death with a frying pan. And given I just got a star level on both of my characters, I expect the next battle with Luxator London to be pretty easy. It has no instant death attacks. However, this guy is one smart cookie and has access to the Magnify element. Once again, that multiplies element damage by 1.5, and he obliterates Omelet with an Omega White. So how about we try that one again? Well, I do, and it goes even worse. Cheerio gets taken down by Omega White this time, and both Omelet and Oatmeal get whacked by a meteor shower. And guess what? I clearly have regressed to baby cereal form because I didn't save after I beat Gravitor. I don't know why I do this. Why am I... So I'm done. I'm buying a boat. Goodbye, YouTube. I'm buying a boat. Bye. See ya. I'm gonna sail away. I knew he'd cave eventually. Anyway, I try again, and on my next try, another character dies to Omega White. And on my next try, I realize there's only one way around it. Omega White must kill Oatmeal. So I cast Red Field, followed by Red Wolf, and Omega White does indeed kill Oatmeal. Meteor Shower can't kill either member, and I use Spice of Life to cure off the damage. And soon enough, a physical attack from Omelet takes this white monster out of my misery. His misery. Whatever. Whoever's misery it is. I don't care. And that means it's time to refight Gravitor, and given my extra stats, I expect it to be easy. And I'm wrong. Omelet goes down to a Hellbound on my first try, but on my second try, I toast this behemoth with a Red Wolf and some powerful physical attacks, get an amazing star level, and move on to Aquator. And as a blue innate, Aquator is a big issue. He starts by changing up the field effect and casting Vigora, which will allow him to do a ton of physical attacks, but I cast Weaken to lessen the impact and then heal after his barrage is complete. And Omega Blue can't even touch Cheerio, and then I heal up and lay into him with more physical attacks. And then he casts Ice Blast, which freezes Cheerio, which is bad, followed by Iceberg, which destroys him, which is worse. And that forces me to restart. Field effect is going to be very important in this battle. On my second try, I get the field effect to all red before his physical attacks start, and this drops him to the healing point very quickly. Then I use Omelet's Dinner Guest, which does massive damage. At that point, an Omega Blue hits hard and I have to heal, but Iceberg freezes our proteinaceous dinner out of existence. But I once again make the decision to forego the star level on Omelet and just finish off the boss. I remember to save, yay, and finally I touch the flaming hot Cheeto cereal with my Oatmeal and fight the second to last boss. The Serial Devourer has been a problem in every single run thus far, and this time is no different. He cycles through the 6 element colors, getting more powerful until he returns to his base white form. The first form, yellow, is pretty pitiful as it only casts level 1 elements, but the second form, the red form, is pretty pitiful because of our team. It provides an opportunity to prepare for the next section. It can cast the Volcano element, and of course we have a trap for that. Sadly, I forgot to equip it, so I have to run, increasing our fail count. And on try number 2, I remember the Volcano trap, but the red form takes out Cheerio with a Hell Soul attack. And on try number 3, even though I cast the trap, I blaze through the red phase too quickly to trap the Volcano element. After that, the green form bops me with a tornado, and I use Cheerio's Soothe. I finish the green phase and head into blue, and Redfield and Salamander take it out pretty damn quickly. And here, I use my first recharge to use a second Spice of Life, and black uses Holy Light, forcing a third recharge, and I use another recharge to use Soothe again. But it's not not enough. The black form uses a black hole, destroying my entire party in one hit. On try number 4, I cast my Volcano trap, heal off the damage with Spice of Life, and immediately use recharge so that I'll be ready when the green form comes along. It don't matter because the red form uses Omega Red instead of Volcano and takes out Oatmeal. Okay, try number 5. I should mention that I can't really just run and reset, because if I do that, I lose the recharges I used. That means I have to watch the Frozen Flame cereal cutscene again. I don't even bother with the Volcano trap this time because I'm able to get through the red section so quickly. But it doesn't matter because green takes out Oatmeal with an Omega Green. Help! On number 6, I heal up for the first time with Oatmeal on the green form after Tornado. So blue comes in and I get off a Salamander and a physical attack brings us forward to black. I use Soothe, Cheerio gets hit by a free fall, and Oatmeal uses recharge so he can use Soothe again. Holy Light does very little beyond inflicting fatigue, and a couple more physical attacks brings us into the final phase, the white phase. I use another recharge to have Soothe ready, and Time Devourer uses a physical attack. And because I know some big PP elements are coming, I use Soothe right away, followed by a Strengthen on Oatmeal. But here, I get super lucky. Oatmeal uses heavy attack and gets an enormous critical hit, doing almost 1,000 damage. And this is enough to smash in the face of this rainbow skittly freaky deaky dragon, leaving us with just one more boss. But before we finish out this challenge, if you've enjoyed this video, please do me a favor and join the Tantacles Discord community. That's where my community shares their thoughts about RPGs as well as their own challenge runs. And if you're loving this video and want to support the channel financially, consider becoming one of my channel members, the Tantacles. That will get you early access to videos, special emotes to use, and most importantly, my undying gratitude. And if none of that interests you, thank you so much for watching this far in the video. That's the most important thing that you can do to support my channel. I appreciate each and every one of you. So we fought the Devourer of Cereal, and now it's time to fight the Cereal Devourer. I think that's what that is. He's white innate, so our characters don't do extra physical damage. He starts with green elements, which don't seem to have too much effect. Carnivore does a paltry amount of damage, and an Omega Green does a reasonable amount to Cheerio. But then I go hog wild. I have Cheerio use Redfield, and then I let loose with both the Salamander and Red Wolf summons. And at this point, my HP is low, so I use Soothe. The Devourer of Time uses Omega Yellow, and I heal with Spice of Life. I recharge Cheerio's Soothe attack to have it ready for later, but then a Carnivore brings my characters below half health, and I use it right away. The Time Devourer then uses a Deluge, dealing some good damage, and I hit back with a Volcano and some physical attacks. Then I strengthen Oatmeal. He uses a middle attack, but then immediately goes down. So it's now or never. Cheerio hits hard with a medium attack, and the Time Devourer becomes no more than cornmeal in the wind. We've used only red characters and only one non-red element to defeat the entirety of Chrono Cross. And now click here to watch me do that with yellow, or click here to watch me do that with blue. Because if you don't, your cereal will be soggy before you even put a drop of milk in it. Really. Bye-bye.